Just a quick one today, the sentimental analysis video for 17th of April. So I'll just quickly talk about the sentiment and monthly pivots, and so you can get like a technical bias to try and marry with the sentiment. So this is your static and this is your dynamic. This is time, and that's where we are right now. So the dotted lines here, the dashed lines are the midpoint between pivot and resistance, and the midpoint between pivot and support. So we've got AJ at that midpoint between monthly pivot and MR1. So that will act like a resistance. And there's your SLCs. I won't say them out audibly. You can see it on your spreadsheet yourself. Don't forget these are the stops and these are your current positions as well. This is the order book. So it's not that commonly traded. So there's quite thin volumes. We'll add these. So yeah, it's a bit sideways really. Aussie dollar, add these guys. Sideways really. It's currently a buy. We're above monthly pivot. That's a huge SLC. Lots of stops. So we can see that's how the cluster's made because it's the spike. That's where everyone's grouped up together. And when they group up together, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So that's where the big money would target. But we're currently a buy, so I'm above monthly pivot. So the sentiment's good. Technically, it's good. So keep an eye on those things. Euro Oz. So broken that nice diagonal. We've got that big old stop loss cluster there, which obviously pertains to that. Maybe down there, take those guys' stops and then bounce, because whatever the path of the most cruel thing possible, it will do. So possibly down to trigger stops and then up, just because it's cruel. Euro USD, there's your midpoint there. Let's zoom out. So that's your monthly pivot. That's the midpoint between monthly pivot and MS1. So that's going to be a good support. So 10831, that's the midpoint. Sell, and it's sideways. Yeah, it's pretty sideways. Cable, buy. We're above monthly pivot. We actually did cross a long time ago. Actually, yeah, the 1st of April. So we've been above pivot for a period of time. There was a lot of consolidation and uncertainty, but we managed to climb above. Strong resistance, some good support. The SLCs are close, so be careful. It might trigger them and bounce. Zoom in. You can see the stop losses there. So that's how that pertains to that level. And then that pertains to that level. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Kiwi. Now it should be a sell because the basket itself, the Kiwi basket is a strong sell. The USD bubble's a strong buy, but the actual performance on the day of the dollar has been poor. So we should expect to see a reversal on the dollar, and we should expect to see a reversal on the Kiwi. So this would be an interesting one to see if the sentiment's going to work in agreement with technicals. Above the pivot, but we're a sell, and we're going down over time, so that makes it a buy dynamically. Okay, so that's probably one of the reasons why it's doing quite well, because the retailer's selling. And these guys, yeah, see how it goes. Euro, yen, so it's a sell. It's kind of sideways on the sentiment. So they went long there. My FX book have been quite long for a long period of time. That's the orange line. There's your spike, the cluster. The order book's really good. You'll have access to order book software for free if you go to Awanda. This is a paid thing that I get from FXSI, which aggregates multiple brokers. So it's very powerful. So where you see spikes, they're like liquidity areas for probe and absorption and then bounce. So these spikes are worth looking at. Current positions and orders. Got the pound yen pivot. We've got a below diagonal. There's your SLCs. and kind of sideways, pretty much sideways. They sold these guys. I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. Oh, FX below. Okay. Yeah. So when they sell, then it's usually quite a bullish signal. But we would want them all to sell in order to come up. So pretty sideways. The grey band is your 50% grey area. It's like a neutral line. You really want it above or below that for confirmation. This is like a grey area where it can bounce. Dollar yen, strong resistance, currently a sell, but we're above monthly pivot. So next month's pivots will be better because they'll line up according to the sentiment and stuff. The pivots are out of bonk because last month was so whipsaw. Again, keep an eye on these spikes. We are below the diagonal, but we're above the pivot, but we're a sell. Dollar CAD, strong buy. Looks like they're going long, which is interesting. Oh, those my FX book, they're selling. So by them selling, it should cause price to come up. Keep an eye on the SLC sizes as well. They're key. Remember the Aussie dollar one is huge, right? Dollar Swiss above the diagonal. Currently a sell, and they're going long, which is a sell over time. Yeah. So at that point. So yeah, it could be payday for these guys because they went long and price did come up. So that's interesting. But because they go long, it should become a sell. But there are fundamental reasons for this to do well because if we have a risk-on mood in the markets, the Swiss franc will likely dump and the dollar could rise. So there are things to take into account. But it is currently falling on the H1, so possibly down to here, then bounce. But it's currently a sell. Where's the pivot? And we're above pivot too. A lot of the currency pairs are above, so it's a bit skewing. Now this is very biased towards sell and very high SSI, the speculative sentiment index. So we should expect this to sell off, but it is getting to extremes now. So just putting the stochastic on there made a sell signal, but we'll look to go long. I think if we get across down there and the sentiment agrees. And the last one, gold. Now we're below MR1, 1701. So that's the key level I'm watching. It is currently a buy. The sentiment across time is kind of mixed. They're going long, these guys, Saxo Bank, and these guys are going short. So it's a bit of a mixed one. I have a bearish bias for this, just because I think we just hit a massive supply up there. So that blue line is the median volume point, which is like the VWAP, but it's just FX, it's a size version. So that's like a natural resting place, which is 1663. The average long price is 1680, and that's where I'm targeting. I might exit, and then I can just enjoy my afternoon. And then we will be back on Monday, and I'll do these videos again. Keep an eye on the monthly pivots and the midpoints, and also the movement across time as well. And yeah, I'd appreciate any feedback and like and subscribe and stuff. It would mean a lot. And have a good weekend.